Hi there, this is Solitaire Ronan from Solitaire Ronan Films, and welcome to In the Frame. Today I'm going to talk about what might be the best release of the year so far. It's the BFI Early Works by Michael Powell. This came out 23rd of September, I believe. I only picked up today, and I completely devoured it. There's about 4 hours and 40 minutes worth of material on the 2 discs, and it's just brilliant stuff by the BFI. It comes in a nice little slip, and there's, as I said, there's 2 discs and a lovely big juicy booklet. There's extras up the wazoo, and if you're interested in Michael Powell, it's a no-brainer. But if you're interested in British cinema or cinema in general, it's just an absolute must-have. So this features 5 of Powell's early films. He made 23 films between 1931 and 37. 10 of those are lost. Granted, some of these were thought to be lost and they found them, and BFI did an amazing job in restoring them, because the prints on all 5 of these are just wonderful, but 10 out of the 23 are currently lost, sadly. So we have Rhinox, which is a strange title, but it's just the name of a company. Hotel Splendide, The Night of the Party, or The Night of the Murder Party, Her Last Affair with an E, and Behind the Mask. So Behind the Mask is the 1944 55-minute version. The 1936 70 odd minute version is sadly lost, so we only have the 55-minute version, and all the films are just hugely enjoyable. Obviously none of them are like masterpieces by any stretch of the imagination, but they're brisk. I think the longest one's 78 minutes. There's a 47-minute one, a 53-minute one. So they're not full-length features, but by jingo, the special features certainly do not scrimp on the material. So Rhinox is about a company that is in financial bother, and the lead, or the head of the company, is being pestered by a man who he owes money, and he has to find a way of getting money and saving the company. Hotel Splendide is about this average working schmo who finds out that his uncle has left him his hotel on the coast in his will, so he thinks he's going to this massive beautiful hotel, and it turns out somewhat differently, and concurrently a thief gets out of prison and he has hidden the stash, what he thinks is still a shack, but of course that's where the hotel's built. So there's all manner of hijinks as the thief is trying to get his loot back. And then we have the night of the party, which is a lot of fun. It's basically a whodunit, as these rich people decide to have a game of murder at a party, but it turns real. That one's got Leslie Banks in it. Her Last Affair, again, is a wonderful little tale of infidelity that turns deadly, and Behind the Mask is a wonderful little Judex type film of mistaken identity and running from the police. Obviously Powell, worked with Hitchcock in the early days briefly, and he split and kind of made these films sort of independently or not with a major studio. So some of them he kind of had to do contractually, but you do see elements of the Powell that we know and love. But again, these are more kind of quickies, if you will, but they're so much fun. There's like full of familiar faces. Her Last Affair has just got name after name in it that I'm obviously not going to name. It's like Googie Withers, or Winters. John Laurie's in it. There's just a host of famous British faces, in all the films, but Her Last Affair, the cast is just silly, basically. It's almost like a Richard Lester film with the cast it's got. Again, the prints are just absolutely marvellous, but the special features are just a treasure trove if you are the least bit interested in the genius that was Michael Powell. So there's commentaries on all 5 of the films by Mark David Jacobs. He does Rhinox and Behind the Mask. Lawrence Napper and Dom Delargy, I don't know whether they make these names up, I'm not quite sure. That's for Hotel Splendide. Dr. Josephine Botting and Vic Pratt on The Night of the Party, and Ian Christie, who of course wrote Arrows of Desire, on Her Last Affair. And now one of the absolute gems in this is the Riviera Revels, the Travel Laugh number 1 and number 10. So the BFI have 7 of the 12 of these that were made. These are from 1927, and the 2 of them total 26 minutes. So Powell's dad had a hotel on the Riviera, so Powell was over there, and again, by knowing people, and stars obviously went to the Riviera and filmmakers went to the Riviera, somehow Michael Powell ended up in these comedy shorts where he looks like a cross between Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd, with little glasses, and he's dressed up as a typical British tourist, and he does a lot of physical comedy, he does a lot of stunts. So if you want to see a young Michael Powell, of course he's still bald at the age of like 23, doing like physical stunts and probably hurting himself, these are just fascinating. There's an optional commentary by Bryony Dixon, who's the curator of silent film at the BFI, and then she has a 12-minute piece inside the archive of the Riviera Revels where she explores the origins and Michael Powell's work on them. But even as a young man, he wasn't that fascinated with acting. He wanted to be a director, and he had that drive. And then inside the archive, the early films of Michael Powell, again, is a new documentary which is 42 minutes long, which is absolutely brilliant, which is about the BFI's role in rediscovering and remastering the early films of Michael Powell, which is absolutely fascinating stuff. You get different people from different departments of the restoration process. And then you have Visions, Dreams and Magic, the unmade films of Michael Powell from 2023, which is 41 minutes long, which is a documentary about Michael Powell's unrealised films, which he had about 100 scripts or so kicking about, and some of them are pretty fascinating. I mean, obviously the most famous one is The Tempest, which he wanted to do for ages with James Mason as Prospero, and Mia Farrow in it. Frankie Howard was going to be in it, but again, it just never came to be, because eventually Powell decided, well, I'm not going to do a lower budget compromised one, so I'd rather just not do it at all. And then there's a fascinating television series he was going to do, 13 Ways to Kill a Poet, and he was going to have different filmmakers do half-hour TV films on poets. So obviously by this time Scorsese was a fan, so you were going to have like Scorsese and Paul Schrader and Cronenberg and Woody Allen, and David Bowie was going to direct one. The list of names that we see through the archive, because the BFI has so much Michael Powell stuff, and just mention those Riviera Revels, they have letters that Michael Powell wrote back home to his mum saying he's never coming back, because he's enjoying himself so much. So if you see the list of names that were going to be involved with this show, including Michael Powell was going to do one of the films on Edgar Allan Poe, and you see written Christopher Walken as Poe, which would have been absolutely fascinating, but unfortunately all of these things were never meant to be, so we just have to imagine what they would be like. There was another one called The Living Room, which was going to be written by Graham Greene, and then he was fascinated by the fantasy novels of Ursula Le Guin, so he was going to do The Wizard of Earthsea, and that's a trilogy, so who knows what would have happened. But again, it's a fascinating 41 minutes, and again you're kind of saddened by the fact he never got to do this kind of stuff, because again, very much like Orson Welles, he got to a point in his career where unbelievably people wouldn't give him funding. I mean, again, with Welles and Powell, you've got two of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and that's not like hyperbole. This isn't calling Edgar Wright one of the greatest films of all time, or Tarantino. I mean, this is Orson Welles and Michael Powell we're talking about, and he still couldn't get funding because people just couldn't imagine the kind of projects that Powell wanted to do, being viable or being commercial or being successful. And then we have an audio interview with Erwin Hillier from 1988, which was 26 minutes, which is excerpts from the British Entertainment History Project, where cinematographer Erwin Hillier recalls working with Michael Powell. And then you have The Archers in Argentina from 1954, which is 21 minutes, which was shot by Emmerich Pressburger on home video, where Michael Powell and lots of stars are in an Argentinian film festival. So you've got Trevor Howard walking about with lots of beautiful women in his arm, and that's got an optional commentary by Mark David Jacobs, and obviously there's a booklet as well. So I mean, this might be the release of the year. Again, the films themselves are just wonderfully enjoyable. Again, there's no masterpieces here, there's no kind of lost masterwork or anything, but they're all just really enjoyable, well paced. None of them lag for a second, and the special features just are fascinating. There's so much stuff to learn about Michael Powell, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful set. As I said, I only got it today. Yes, I haven't listened to the commentaries, but I've just devoured everything else. As he is statistically my favourite filmmaker of all time, and easily Britain's greatest filmmaker. Brilliant set by BFI, and my camera has just been knocked over by the beasts that I share a house with, because again, with cats, you you are living in their world, so you might as well get used to it. So thanks very much for watching. Please let me know if you've seen any of Michael Powell's early works. Please let me know also if you've seen my camera, and hopefully join me again for more random reviews, in the frame episodes, double takes, and whenever I get my director series back up and running. Director series. So this is Solitary Ronin trying to put my PC back together, saying thanks very much for watching and farewell.